Did the driver shoot JFK? Sources say, video too grainy to tell. Actually, I'd rather know more about Jade Helm and why the military thinks the South is similar to the Middle East. I wasn't aware ISIS lost that many teeth. Anyway, let's blending. Okay. Everything now has one of these. And hey, it works. I've got my sword, my silver, and my gold. I don't have any amounts, but I really don't care about that right now. So let's look at these scripts real quick. This one creates the inventory. From BGE, import logic. From random, import range as ran. Basically, I'm importing logic as BGE, and it gets named logic, which is logical. That's what I name it. And from random, import range as ran, because I like to use random numbers. I'm random. Never mind. I am not that random. Def gen inventory, DEF. This defines a module or function or whatever the correct term is now. There's so many terms for this I can't remember. Logic.globalDict inventory equals an empty list. Yay, those double brackets. They're an empty list. Let me zoom in case you're viewing on an iPhone. You pretentious. Never mind. For I and ran range 45. This is going to create an inventory that's 45 items long. And we're adding none to it. Now, when you add something to a list, you have to put it in those braces, those brackets. Otherwise, it'll just go all derp on you. Okay. So, logic.globalDict inventory, item 2, item 1, and item 0. Yes, I'm going backwards. But we can do that because they're all none. I like to fill in my lists so that it's a whole lot easier to handle. And I can run through it if I want to, which makes it better than dictionaries. But it's always a good idea to put something there, even if it's nothing. Yeah, I know, that's confusing some of the people who don't know anything about Python. But none is a value, so is 0. They're pretty much nothing. They always equate to false. So, we're putting in a mini list in this spot that used to be none. The name and the amount. Name, amount, name. And this amount is actually supposed to be its durability. I'll deal with that later when I start picking items up. I may not even do a tutorial on that. But this, def gen item data. And we're passing it name, type, integer, food, water, power, and description. Now, the C programming languages and a lot of other languages have these things called enums. They're enumerations. They're like a numbered list. Personally, I don't care. Now, Python doesn't quite have that yet. You can install it from version 3 into 2.7 and all this stuff. That's an annoyance. Pain in my butt. So, I just say type equals this list of types. Food, water, weapons, ammo, other. iType equals type integer. So we passed it an integer, a number, and we're getting the type via that. There really should be an if statement so that if it's greater than the amount of stuff in type, or if it's less than 0, it'll default to either food or other. Now, this is why I like random numbers. Energy, the amount of energy it gives you equals random water, food times water plus 1. That way, in case food or water is 0, you still have a random range of numbers. This basically randomly generates it, which makes it more interesting for other games. Durability, random power times 50 and power times 100. That way, if you have a wooden sword where its power is 1, its power will either be between 50 and 100. And a titanium sword with a power of 5 would be somewhere between 250 and 500. Yay! And now we create the dictionary. Data equals name. Name, type, I type, food, food, water, water. Energy, energy, power, power, durability, durability, and description, description. We passed a lot of this stuff, but we didn't have to pass energy or durability. And from just a few values, we created this item. Now, this dictionary lets us have access to all these stats of this item. That way, if the player has food or water and they consume it, it'll add to their stats and we can get it without having to put it into the player's inventory and then save it to an external file, thus making it bigger and bigger. And then we return the data, because we can always just get this def gen item dictionary. This pretty much creates an empty dictionary and adds items sword, gold, silver to the logic.global dictionary items dictionary, which now equals items. Sword 2005, a sharp blade, gold 4001, riches cast into the streets, and silver 4001, riches cast into the streets. That being name, type integer, 2 for a weapon, 4 for other. Food, it's not food. Water, it's not water. Power, really. I just put ones here so that I didn't have 0 times, so that I didn't have 0 times 50 and 0 times 100. Logic.global items equals items. So this fills out our items. This pretty much gives us the data that we can go to for a more refined and more complex data type that we don't want to save to the player's inventory list. And this def gen all equals runs the inventory generator and the item dictionary generator. I know it's a lot and confusing, but the reason I did it that way, and I was told to do this by, I think it was Agoose66, no, Agoose77 or something like that on Blender Artists. What you want to do is you want to have it as a module. It runs a bit faster and it's a bit more stable. If you can't see here, you always want .py. That's the Python script extension on your script name. And then you just do start inventory .gen all. You don't have to use the opening and closing braces. I've forgotten what those are. Now this displays the inventory. An interesting thing to note that you can pass the current controller by putting CONT inside these parentheses. And it'll pass the controller. You don't have to have these parentheses, you don't have to have the controller. And controller The only thing you can pass is the current controller. But I'm pretty sure that you don't have to have a CONT. You could name it bar, and it should still work. So, oh no, I zoomed out. Anyway, import BGE from BGE import logic, because I'm using both of them. Okay, this one's a long one. Def, show item. Item PNG is the image we're sending it, and cont is the controller. VTE equals BG.texture. This is the video texture, whatever. Controller equals logic.get current controller. I really don't need that, because we're already passing the controller. You can use the pound sign, more appropriately known as an octothorpe, to comment out stuff in Python. Own equals controller.owner. Mesh equals own.mesh is 0. This is just to get mesh. I don't know why it has a list of meshes. I've never had a list of meshes on an object. I think that's something that got depreciated, but not completely. Okay. Here's an important one. Own image equals nothing. Now, own is the object, the owner of the controller. This here, the image, is the name of a property. Properties are extra values you can have attached to an object. They can hold data. Now, pretty much any property can hold any data. This, luckily, creates a property that's a text type, because I think it'll throw an error if you try to put text in an integer or a float into an integer property. Luckily this does text, because text can hold anything, including lists, objects, vertex arrays, your mother, and images. Yes, it can hold pretty much everything, including the text string, your mother. Now, material equals string, own.mesh is 0, material 0. This gets the materials and turns it into a string. Material ID equals VT dot material ID, owner and material. Okay, item equals VT dot texture, owner, material ID, and 0. This gets you the first texture, the material of the owner. Since we're getting owner and material ID, I don't know why we have to have material ID. It's just the way I've done it. I think it's kind of redundant, and there may be another way to do it. Because VT.material ID equals owner and material. I'm guessing this gives you the ID of the material. And this 0 gets you the first texture in that material. Okay. Name equals logic.global dictionary. Inventory own index 0. This gets you the name of the inventory item. And image equals logic expand path, icons, item PNG, PNG. This gets you the image in the icons folder. See? Images in the icons folder. Item.source equals VT dot image ffmpeg image. This formats the image. It can also format videos, and then sends it to the source of the item texture. interesting thing to note is that there's an image mix function that can mix two images based on different weights, which means you can take a grayscale image and give it color with a color image. It is a bit wonky, and I've used it. It's worth using if you want to, but it gets messy quick. Item.refresh true. This refreshes the texture so that it shows up. Now, something to note. One thing is, if you don't have a property on an object, you can assign the property to the object using a line like that. Own, open brace, image in quotes, closed brace equals nothing. This creates a string property on the object from the start, because you have to take this image data here, item, and add it to a property, because properties can hold everything. And this is the way I've always done it, and it seems to be the way to do it, because the only way the texture is going to show up is if you do that. I'm not sure if you have to do it if you're using a movie, but you have to do it this way if you're using a texture. Def get item controller. We get the owner. This item equals empty doesn't have to do with that item just yet, but empty is a name of a texture image I have in icons. These print statements I was just using, they have no bearing on anything, but print dir and then having something in those parentheses will print the directory. It'll show you what you can do with it, like logic.globaldict will have a whole bunch of stuff. This is how I got logic.globaldict.keys and printed it out. Now, if inventory in logic.globaldict.keys with the parentheses, we're checking to make sure that inventory is actually there. If we try to do this without an inventory, it's going to throw an error. Blender will have a fit. Okay, if logic.globaldictionary inventory own index. This is why everything is not. Because I could say if logic.globaldict inventory own index is equal to true, and it'd be the same thing. But this basically tells me that there's something in the inventory other than none or 0 or false, then it's true. So we have something in this inventory index. Now, own index is a property I already have on the object. I forgot to put the image property on there, but luckily you can just assign from Python, which is great. Okay, this is a long line. Item equals logic.globaldict inventory own index 0. This gets the item name. Print item to make sure that we have an item. That's moot. Then show item, item, and controller. We're passing it to controller, we're passing it the item. It'll either show an empty, or it'll show the item from within the inventory. So we go here, we press P to play, and we have our sword, our silver, and our gold. Now, something to show you real quick. This camera thing tells you what type of active data to display and edit, and that is the rendering settings. I want to make sure that the render settings here are Blender native. You click on mouse cursor right there under display, and you press play. It'll display your mouse cursor. Yay, and you can move it around. Hopefully next, we'll actually be moving some items around, which means I've got to set that up. Pretty much we're going to take one of these, a copy of one of these, give it a completely different material, create a separate inventory spot, or we can just extend the inventory list. Either way, it doesn't matter. And we'll have it follow the mouse, and when you click on something, it'll pick it up and you can move it around.